fighting for tech talent is a big deal.
Yeah.
So not only do we care about our people, you're right. The business case is huge, huge. People that don't feel valued leave. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. Welcome to Vibe Check, a place where we have open, honest, and authentic conversations about the human side of business. Our goal is to help you achieve better business outcomes with people-led initiatives. And to get there, there's only room for real talk and genuine advice. No sugarcoating here. I'm JJ, Office Vibe's resident employee experience researcher and your host for this series. Let's get right into it. Our guest today is Mary Jo Ogren. Mary Jo is the head of talent at Graham Allen Partners, a private equity firm. It's in South Bend, Indiana. She and her team work hand in hand with Graham Allen's portfolio of companies to make sure that they have the talent they need to be successful and the strategies, the policies, and the practices to support, engage, and manage their teams. Before joining Graham Allen more than 13 years ago, Mary Jo was a high school special education teacher, and she uses what she learned to shape the way she approaches her teams today. Mary Jo, welcome to Vibe Check.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good.
Amazing. Well, we do this for all of our episodes. We want to really start by checking in with the human being. So although it sounds like a repeat of the previous question, I do want to do a real quick vibe check with you. So how are you doing, really?
I'm good. I will tell you, it has been a long week. Sometimes when you work with people, there are longer weeks than others. It's been a long week, but I am excited. It's Friday. We have lots of great things going on in our office today. We've got some team members visiting from some other locations. I'm meeting with you. So I'm anxious and excited to have a great day today, even though it's been a long week.
Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, I totally feel you coming from an HR background. There were days where I was like, really, is this really going on? Seriously,
Exactly.
5 o'clock get here so I can get to the weekend, put on my pajamas and chill.
Exactly. That's what's on my agenda for this weekend.
That's what's planned, right? But then you're reminded also of the privilege that you have to take care of your people too and drive the business forward. So I guess, it balances that all out. The moments where it's hard remind you of the moments where it feels really good, doesn't it?
That's right. I always say that, there's like 5% of what I do that can be really taxing and really annoying and can drive you crazy. But the truth is that 95% of it is so wonderful and so incredible that 5%, it matters in the moment, right? When I'm a little frustrated, but overall, it doesn't even matter. Like, even the team members that the issues that drive me crazy, like we have such good people in general that it's like, I forget about it in a few hours that I was even annoyed.
You're so true. And then you look back on it and you're like, why did I get so worked up?
Yes.
It was 5% of it. I love it's that way of seeing things is really full of wisdom. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
It feels good too for me. Thank you. I can relate to the hard week this week. So like I said, this is really a space where human beings talk together. So before we even dive in, I gave a little preview on your background. We're going to come back to it. But before we dive in, we really want to get to know you. Our audience really wants to get to know you from an individual perspective, who you are as a person. So can you share a little bit of that with me? Who you are, what drives you, what your core values are, anything that's on your mind that describes Mary Jo, the person.
Sure. So I would say, I have a lot of jobs, right? But if I really am going to tell you about my life as a person, my most important role is that I'm an aunt and I have nieces and nephews that are the whole center of my world. That they have changed my life. They're the best part of my life. So being an aunt, I have a special needs nephew, and I was a special education teacher. So getting to use everything that I learned in that environment to be like an even better aunt to him and advocate for him, that is my number one job. And one reason why I love my own company is that we put our families first for everybody here. So in our company, I'm able to focus on whatever I need to do to be a good aunt and still be a good, head of talent. So that's fabulous. So aside from that, I would say what drives me, so much of what I do here is all about inclusion and acceptance and, fighting for everyone on our team. And so that is like my whole personality really is around that, right? Like wanting to advocate for people who maybe don't have as strong of voices of their own. So, being an aunt, working at Grand Island, all of that sort of ties in, former teacher, that sort of is really the core of who I am.
A care for human beings.
For sure.
I can really feel, absolutely. I know you a little bit because we've talked so many times.
Right.
I'm sure the audience listening can really feel how you're a living example of bringing your true and whole self to work. Like who you are deep down inside really drives how you work, how you parent, if we could say that,
Right.
for your nieces
Right.
and nephews.
Yes.
I find that beautiful. Thank you for sharing that very personal aspect of your life. I really appreciate it. And then obviously you hinted at it, of course, in your answers for your personal life, but tell us a little bit about your professional journey. What's the story that got you to today professionally?
Sure. So, I will try not to go too far back, but my story is sort of shaped by my college experience, which was, almost 30 years ago, which is crazy to even say that. But I went to University of Notre Dame. I was a sociology, African American studies major. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to change the world. Like I really, knew that was sort of on the
Yeah.
horizon. And this will become relevant in a second. But my friend from college, his name is Tracy Graham. We were sociology majors together. We graduated. I became a teacher, taught special ed for 13 years. He started his first company. The internet had just come about. That's how old we are. He started an internet company. And so for the next several years, he started and sold companies. I was a special ed teacher. And then about 13 years ago, I was looking for something different. He had just sold a company. He was starting a private equity firm. And he said to me, at Grand Island Partners, the company he was starting, we need to have someone on board who cares more about people than money, someone who will just fight for our people and isn't the traditional like private equity mindset. And I just started to think, oh my gosh, I'm a teacher. I make $44,000. I'm not motivated by money. Maybe I could do that, right? I could go to Grand Island and I could figure it out. So I left teaching and it was just the two of us. We started Grand Island 13 years ago with just two of us. And over the past 13 years, I have been able to learn everything about people operations, HR, talent on my own and Google and, colleagues.
Yeah.
And so now we've built this incredible portfolio of companies. So today, my professional journey is every day I wake up and I think about how to help our companies have the best people, treat them in such a way they love coming to work. And a big part of that is, of course, technical talent. Of all the things I focus on, I focus the most on making sure we have technical talent.
Wow. As I was listening to you, there were so many things that were popping into my head. I want to know, like, why did you make that leap? What pulled you to say, I'm going to join Tracy on this? I know obviously you guys are best friends. There's a tie there, but what was the thing that made you take that leap?
There were a couple of things. One was that I was tired. I mean, special ed is a really hard job. I taught high school, and my last 7 years, I taught students that had emotional disabilities who had some kind of run-in with the juvenile justice system. So they were students whose behavior was so unpredictable that they couldn't be in a normal education setting. They were in a self-contained room with me. And it was just getting harder and harder to feel like I was making a huge difference. I love my students, but the lives they were leading were very challenging and the job was challenging. And I started to feel like I couldn't give it my all anymore. And I had always said this whole thing of do no harm as a teacher. And I promised myself I would not stay for 40 years if I wasn't still in it. And so I just really felt like I need a break. I need to try something new. And then I just got so lucky that I had this friend who not only was starting a new company, but believed in me. A lot of teachers think they can't do other jobs, right? But I had someone that said to me, oh my gosh, all the things you do as a teacher, you could apply to how we treat people at our companies.
Totally, totally. And in my experience, some of the best people leaders I've met in my career come from non-traditional backgrounds. And I think we have that example here internally at GSoft, our parent company. And it's just so magnificent to see people who used to be human rights lawyers or developers or salespeople. I think, being in people roles, and I think it brings diversity.
I agree.
And this drives inclusion because they both go hand in hand,
I
right?
agree.
It brings diversity to our business. And again, it all boils down to those human values of like doing right by the people and making this a place where you make your own difference and you have your own impact with your own baggage, but knowing that that baggage, that toolbox that you have is truly valued. Like Tracy really,
Mhm.
looped you in and brought you into the company for who you are as a person,
Yes. And I
Uh,
think I got lucky because he does not really value what's the administrative part of HR, we have to know all the rules and all this. Like he has always said, I don't care about any of that. I care about how we're going to treat people and we're going to do the right thing. And so even today, I am not a compliance expert. I'm not sure I'm certified. I don't know but I have an HR attorney that I go to when I don't know what to do.
there you
I
go.
have a network. But so what we care about is how you treat people, how you think about problems, all the other stuff that I'm even now not great at today. I can staff my weakness, right? I can have people that know that. I can have a team, but it's really about how you feel about our team that matters to us anyway.
I think I said that in the first episode, but I'll say it again. People won't remember what you did. They'll remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And
that was something teachers always say too, right? And again, we also say no, students, for example, don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So again, we do the same thing here. It's relationship. One of our core values is we have growth, relationship, integrity, and passion.
Okay.
And it's so much about relationships.
Wow. And I'm sure that transpires in day-to-day actions. You can really see it comes from the heart and it's deeply ingrained into your company's DNA and the founder's DNA, right? Which you adopted when you decided to join him.
Yes.
And it was a perfect fit. It was aligned, right? It spoke to me when you said, like, it doesn't matter that you don't know the compliance stuff. Like, I remember my very first job in HR. I was 25 years old. It was a tech company, very similar to your focus. And I was like, I totally had the imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing? I'm 25 years old. I'm an HR director for tech startups. Like, I went to the CEO. I was like, but are you crazy? And then he said, we love you for who you are and your personality and when you bring to the table. And he said, it stuck with me forever. He said, I don't care what you do during your day at work. If you want to search for houses online because you're shopping for your first place, which was true.
Yeah.
I just met my husband. We were looking for our first house together. And he said, I don't care. You can do all of that so long as our people are happy, thriving, engaged, they perform. That's all that matters to me. And I was like, yep, I made the right decision to join this company, right?
Yes,
This is in full alignment with who I am. And I really feel that that's the same thing for you, right? Am I wrong?
Oh no, absolutely it is. Wow. And it gives you the freedom, like, to know what to do. Like I always say, so I make a lot of decisions when Tracy's not available, but I know so much how he treat people that I have this inner compass of knowing, I know what to do because I know what we believe, right? And it gives you so much, it takes away that fear of I'm going to make the wrong decision because I know we value our people. I know that they're important to us. So as long as the decisions I make are in line with that and reasonable, I know it's going to be fine.
Right. So it's a no-brainer.
Kind of like you, right? You knew the guardrails, like our people should be thriving, etc.
Wow, that wasn't planned at all, but it's the perfect segue to diving into our subject. So we want to talk about why recognition, which I know is a topic very close to your heart, why recognition and alignment are critical in keeping high performers engaged in a productive during a downturn. Let's start with maybe asking you what alignment means to you, both personally and from a business perspective.
Sure. So I'll do personal first. To me, alignment means I'm acting in a way that is like in agreement with what I believe. So the biggest area in my life where alignment matters has to do with my time. And in my life, being an aunt is the number one job. So am I spending a good amount of time with my nieces and nephews? And if I'm not, I don't feel like I'm lying. Like if I'm working and I work a whole lot, but if I'm working too much or if I don't make time for them. So for me, my personal life alignment is if I say that X, Y, and Z are most important, is my time spent on those things, right? So for me, I feel out of alignment when there's a disconnect between what I believe and what I'm doing in my actions, right?
Right.
I think alignment at work is a little different. I think it's all of us rowing in the same direction. I mean, as we have grown, we've had a lot of growing pains of, I'll use Analytics as our largest company, 250 people. They're sort of my baby. They were one of the first companies we started. We've been together, 12 years. So as we grew, does everyone still know where we're headed?
Right.
Does everyone still know what they're supposed to do? Does everyone know what the quarterly goals are? And we have not always done a great job of all of that. Like, it's hard when you're growing really fast, but we just find that when we're all on the same page, right? And what we say we're going to do matches what we're doing, and what they believe they're supposed to be doing matches what we think. I mean, all of that, just alignment is like, to me, being in sync and sharing the same view of what's happening.
Kind of walking the talk, right? There's a lot of that,
yes.
The answer that you just gave us. And from a business perspective, like you talked about what alignment means to you. And of course, the image of like, we're in sync, it works, we're all going in the same direction. But you also shared some of the challenges that come with a growing company. And you guys are acquiring different companies as you go through, obviously, like it's multiplying the quantity of work, but also the number of people that you have to keep in alignment.
Yes.
What's your check-in mechanism there?
Yeah. So you did not pay me to say this, but we really use Office Vibe a lot for that. One of the whole reasons we adopted Office Vibe was we started to do, if you think of analytics, we had 35 people at the end of 2017. We have 250 today. So in like 4 or 5 years. And when we started doing acquisitions, I felt the pain. Like, I could tell some of our new companies that we brought into the family were not having a great experience. Okay. That's when we adopted Office Vibe. And so I think we can feel when alignment's off, but we really do monitor it on Office Vibe. And then we use those scores to take action. Right? So if you just look at Office Vibe, that's not really like the most powerful part, but we noticed when we were coming together a few years ago, we got Office Vibe, alignment was one of our lowest scores: recognition, alignment, and wellness. Wow. And so by knowing that, right, we were able to do a bunch of things. Like, for example, we started having town hall meetings every quarter where we got everybody together and we said, this is where we're going next quarter. This is how we did last quarter. So, so Office Vibe is a way we know, we can feel it, right? Yeah. Sometimes something's going on, but the larger we got, the less we could count on feelings because there's so many of us. Yeah. And so that's one reason Office Vibe is so important.
Wow, I love that you said that. Of course, I agree. That's the foundation of why we built the tool, right? It's to provide those signals. But then the biggest part, I feel, belongs to the people inside the organization. You can have all the signals you want. They just stay signals if you do nothing with them, right?
Exactly.
And that's the tricky part. And I think you guys did that really wonderfully, which is with your people and for your people, right? You really sat down and said, this is what we're seeing. This is why we're using this tool. This is why it's powerful. And here's what we're going to do about it.
Yes. Yes.
So important. Tell me more about this journey of building an online, like you started telling stories. So, get me into it. Like,
yeah. So what we found was that the larger we got, the more messages did not get out to everybody, right? So we started with a few people. For example, our leadership team had a 7 a.m. Sunday morning breakfast for like 8 years. And that leadership team knew what was going on. And that was fine because they communicated to their small teams. But as we brought in more companies at more locations, like we have 4 locations now, we have 50 remote people. We just opened an office in India. As we have grown, the messaging doesn't just happen to get out.
Nope.
So we have had to be really intentional, and we're still not there yet, right? But we had to say, okay, number 1, we're going to have these quarterly town halls, for example. Number 2, we're going to record the town halls, right? So that if someone can't make it, they can watch it later. Yeah. We are going to publish a lot more of the things like on our SharePoint, like our company goals. We would tell people what they were, but they weren't always accessible. And then we also have more of a like a team structure now where we made teams. Managers can't manage more than 7 people. So, and I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a magic number, but we found we had such big teams, there wasn't enough alignment because people weren't getting that individual attention. So we just sort of worked down of how do we get better messaging? How do we get people to buy in, and for us, it was a lot about communication and even us being more clear. That's the other thing. Like, the leadership team has had to get more clear about what they really are trying to do and making sure that message gets out. So it's a lot of self-reflection for alignment too.
Right. Absolutely. It sounds, what you're saying is you have to become very intentional with the way you communicate, all sorts of
Yes.
channels and forums, but the level of transparency as well. But intentional about your structure. And the part that really stuck with me in what you said, I didn't know this about Graham Mellon Partners, that rule of a manager can't manage more than 7 people. Like, wow, that's a big decision and it has consequences.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do when that happens, when the
Yeah.
8th person comes on the team?
Yeah. So we are not always good at being active enough of getting on top of it. And there's always like a few outliers, but we like look at our org chart at least once a year, and we do like a reorg and say, what do we need to do? So we break teams up, we look for emerging leaders. And again, I don't know if that's a magic number. It's just what we were like, okay, we're going to make it 7, right? So we just try to stay on top of it. So there are a few exceptions, or someone may have 8 or 9 for like half a year, but
Right.
we really look at the org chart and say what's working, what's not. And sometimes we redo the whole org chart and say, okay, we had it like this, but that doesn't make sense. These teams work together. Maybe they should be more collaborative,
Yeah.
et cetera.
It's a big
But we
assessment.
just wanted more attention for every person.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. It makes complete sense to me. There's different rules. I've seen like the balance is between 5 plus or minus 2. So it feels like 7 makes a lot of sense. Plus it's such a magical and lucky number.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you guys are agree to experiment with that, but also do that regular check-in and say, hold on, kind of like it within a couple or friendship, like, does this still make sense?
Yes.
Let's look at what we're doing, how we're structured. Is this still good for our business and for our people?
Right.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I want to say one more thing about alignment that I think is important. I will say, I don't know for sure I can commit to this, but I believe alignment is almost more important interviewing in the recruiting process. I think we have to be fanatical about making sure who we hire is aligned with who we are.
Right.
So we talk about alignment in the company, but my main focus, is like recruiting. I do a lot of things, but recruiting is my baby,
Yes.
everything. I'm the first screener. No one gets hired at Analytics unless I have screened them and moved them on to a manager interview. And what I'm screening for is alignment. So, for example, in 5 years ago, I would have interviewed someone, they would have come from Google. I'd have been so happy they were at Google that I would have said they should be here. But now I realize people at Google don't want to necessarily work at Analytics. So I have had to become very in tune to who really believes what we believe, who wants to do what we do,
Wow.
who shares our values. And so we try to do this screening to make sure someone, what they want from a company and what they want from the world and how they want to support their team members aligns with what we want, what we believe, the way we operate. So I would say our focus on alignment is 65% on the recruiting process and 35% on once they're here.
The rest of the journey. That makes complete sense. I know recognition is also very, very close to your heart as an individual, but as a business leader as well. What about, building that strong culture of recognition? What has been your journey in doing that?
So that was another thing when we started Office Vibe. I was shocked that recognition was so low because I felt like we were doing a lot of it. That's the thing about Office Vibe sometimes, is the things you thought you were doing well at are the ones you're not. And but again, we made an action plan and we still are not far enough. I mean, I feel like we can almost never give enough recognition, but what we decided was that a couple things. My experience as a teacher told me that recognition is not one size fits all, right? Different people are going to need different kind of recognition, just like different students need different kinds of learning strategies. So we did a couple different things. One is we implemented, we use Microsoft Teams. We made a Teams channel that's called OnStars, Analytics, OnStars, get it?
Yeah.
And co-workers and colleagues give shout outs and thanks and recognition to each other on that Teams channel. So we've been doing that for a few years. And then we started recognizing people at every town hall. So, we call out different teams, different managers call out people. We try to be really well-rounded, but and then we started celebrating birthdays. So we always celebrate birthdays, but we, now have like a big, like we post everything. Oh, it's someone's birthday, it's someone's anniversary, all these different things. But that's all public recognition, right? That not everybody likes. So we needed to find something that was more private, and Good Vibes came about at Office 5. So we adopted that right away because Good Vibes lets you give feedback to someone more privately, right? The manager sees it, HR sees it, but it's not some big shout out. So some people really value that instead.
True.
And the other thing Good Vibes has done for us is it makes feedback so much easier. Like if you post on our Teams channel a shout out to someone, you have to write all the words. You have to decide what you're going to say, how you're going to phrase it.
Right.
Good Vibes, you can pick a card, a little message, send it out.
You're inspired, and there you go. You just add a few words.
You're inspired. We also, we've been working, and we're not where we need to be on this, but we've been trying to get managers to understand that they can be doing small recognitions themselves all the time, right? And so we're trying to, but from a company level, we are trying really hard to step it up, and our scores have went up. I just looked this morning. We have one team that I was surprised was low. And I'm going to, of course, now get on that, right? I'm going to figure out what's going on with that team, but we have definitely raised them. And I think it's no longer our lowest area.
Because you've made it a focus, right? You've ingrained it into your practices too. And I love this image that hearing you talk, the image pops into my head where you really have this dashboard. Like it feels like you're piloting a plane and you're like, oh, there's a red light there. Let me take action. I'm going to fix that before, something bad happens. You really use that as a mechanism to take action really concretely. And I think the people who succeed in life in general, but also in their businesses are the people who are very in tune with those signals, but also very intentional about addressing those signals in a very collaborative way. Do you feel that alignment and recognition go hand in hand? Because we've been talking about both kind of separately, but you think they go together?
I think what I see as going together is that people that aren't feeling recognized are often out of alignment, right? So not feeling recognized is sometimes a symptom of feeling like you're not headed in the same direction as us, or we aren't on the same page, or something like that. I think one of the worst things that can happen, and it's performance review time here, is for someone to think they're doing an amazing job and us to think they're not. Like we're not aligned because you were working on something we don't think is that important, or something like that, right? That there's a disconnect. Alignment's like a disconnect. And I think that when there's a disconnect in alignment, people tend to feel like they're not being recognized. When really, probably if we fix the alignment, there would be, it'd be easier for the recognition part.
Yeah, I think that's right on. In building the structure that we've built and deciding the way we measure engagement, obviously this is aligned with science and theories. And I like to say that the 10 metrics are 10 pieces of a puzzle. And if they don't all like interconnect with one another, something's missing. You need to have all of them,
Yes, I agree. For us, we have found that there are some pieces of Office Vibes, some metrics we've never had to work on, and we're really proud of that. Like our relationship with managers is like 9.2. Like we've killed it. We've always been great at that, right? Relationship with peers, never an issue. So we've been kind of lucky enough that we have those really high scores just based on who we are, that we've had the bandwidth to focus on some of the areas like recognition that we're not as high, right? And so for us, it's been nice that some of them are just are great, right? Because it'd be hard to focus on all 10 at once.
It's impossible. But
I don't know how you do it.
When I hear you say that relationship with peers and relationship with manager are high, I'm not at all surprised, because this is core to who the company is and what your company DNA is. You said it, we care about our people. When you care about your people, no surprise that they're happy with the people they work with, and they feel in perfect alignment with those values, and they have a great experience with their manager.
Yes.
It just makes complete sense. Why? Because you've built the foundation of the house first, which is trust, right?
Yeah. And now it's fine tuning the other things because we are not perfect. We have some lower scores.
No
Just
one is.
those are fine.
It becomes so much easier to work on those things around when you have the root, right?
Yes.
And it feels like you really do. Um, why would you say, like, to a leader or an HR person or anyone asking themselves that question, why is recognition and alignment so critical to business outcomes? Why does it matter so much?
So okay, so for alignment, I would say that if you're driving towards a goal and you are not all driving in the same direction, it's almost impossible, right? So um you have to have the people on your team aligned with what you want to achieve, aligned with what you believe. I mean, the energy it takes for someone who is not in alignment sort of takes away momentum from everybody else,
Oh yeah.
right? So, my partner Tracy always says, we live 90 minutes from Chicago. So, okay, we're all going to go towards Chicago and we're driving to Chicago. But if there are people that didn't know we were going to Chicago, they're going whatever direction, they're never going to make it to Chicago because they didn't even know we were supposed to be driving to Chicago,
There you
right?
go.
And so that is so important. And I would say recognition. I think that a lot of adults, non-teacher adults, underestimate how much team members want people to care about them and tell them they're doing a good job. We focus on it as teachers, right? Telling students they're valuable, telling them we love them, telling them they're doing a great job. And then all of a sudden, people get a job and people forget that's what they want to do. I mean, our team members spend the majority of their waking time with us. It's where so many of them get so much of their own self-worth, their own how they feel about each other.
Oh,
And to do a job and not feel like anyone notices or cares is so demoralizing.
it is.
So I mean, it's just so important. Even like I will tell you, I work hard, but if I worked this hard and no one ever noticed or no one ever said, like, thank you for what you do. I mean, it can be so demoralizing.
And you would lose your people, which
Yes.
is a huge business impact,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. Of course, retention is huge for us, right? We have tech companies in South Bend, Indiana. Fighting for tech talent is a big deal.
Yeah.
So not only do we care about our people, you're right. The business case is huge, huge. People that don't feel valued leave. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. This ends up impacting business metrics, right? Because those people are more committed to their work. They do better quality of work. They serve your customers better. If you're in a service industry, they build better products. If you're in the product industry,
Yes.
and I bet you that's reflected in your turnover rates, right? And your tenure at your company. Yeah.
Yes.
So we've demonstrated, obviously, it's that those two elements, alignment and recognition, are really key to business success. Do you feel that, I feel we can't avoid talking about it, the economic climate, do you feel this impact changes in an economic downturn?
When things were going really well and other tech companies on the coast were hiring hundreds of thousands of workers, we worried a lot about retention. We still do, right? I don't know that the economic downturn will affect our retention or affect our team so much. But what I can tell you is crisis in general affects us. Like during COVID,
Mhm.
we ramped up all of our efforts to care about our people, let them know we're thinking of them. So if the economic downturn has the same kind of effect as like a crisis like COVID, I would just say it becomes more important because whenever our people are fragile or upset, we step up our people ops.
I think it becomes even more important.
Yeah.
And we saw that also like through the pandemic, obviously some people dropping off as well because they had to be close to their expenses. And that makes complete sense. But we also saw customers come back and say, hold on, like, especially in the world of remote work and distributed work, you need a way to know how your people are doing. It became more important than ever to have those
Absolutely.
signals and to be in complete check with all of those metrics, making sure that we knew exactly what was going on. So yeah,
Yes.
of course.
And remote work. I mean, COVID, we were never remote before COVID and we stayed remote after COVID because our people loved it. So it's so important with a distributed team. I mean, absolutely important that you know how people are feeling across the company and not just by department. I don't know if this is, but we measure engagement and we measure alignment and recognition by location too. So remote people or people in India, we've got geographic
Wow,
groups.
cool.
So we want to know, how are remote people feeling, how that are other places. I mean, so we're measuring alignment and recognition in lots of different ways for lots of different groups.
Absolutely. I feel there's no denying, we've said it over and over again, recognition, alignment is positive from an engagement standpoint. But in an economy where we're putting a lot of emphasis on ROI, return on investment, it's helpful for HR leaders to show the full value of those people initiatives. How concretely can people leaders show that impact on the company's bottom line? Like, how do we do that?
Yeah. I don't have exactly the answer, but I will tell you, I think retention is that I really believe that alignment and recognition are so tied to retention. And I don't know how you would necessarily prove that, right? Like, I'm not sure what the actual cause and effect is, but I can tell you that I always make the pitch here that retention is good for business, right? Obviously, it's really expensive to onboard someone else. It could take us months to find someone else. And I just believe that people that are aligned and recognized are so much less likely to leave. So there's one bottom line, but also getting more done. Like in our job at Analytics, for example, we do client implementations. We have a software and we get them on our system. And the more people are feeling good about themselves and the work that we do, align and recognition, the more smooth those implementations go, the happier our customers are, the faster they go. I believe that if you're going to ask someone to go over and above, they're really only going to do that if they think you value them.
Yeah.
And again, those are the two things.
So this series is really centered around genuine, practical advice. Like, we really want to have that type of impact with our audience. We want to share, this is why you're here, like real advice from real people who've been there, done that, got the field experience. And I really, really feel that you're one of those those people. Absolutely. You have a lot of experience to share with our audience. So I want to deep dive about like concrete and practical stuff now. So I get a little bit more precise with some of the things that we talk about. I think you said it before, like you're highly focused on recruiting, but you also have a bunch of other things to handle. And I know your team is growing too. I remember Sarah, right, is on your
Yes.
HR team. She's
Yes.
still there, right?
Yes.
And do you have any other team
I
members?
do. So some of our companies have a dedicated HR manager at the company. So at Analytics, there's a wonderful woman named Laura. And then Sarah and I work at the Graham Allen level and support
Right.
other companies. And then some, like multiple of our companies have HR managers.
Wow. Okay. So there's alignment that needs to be done there too, from a broader company umbrella to all within those little companies. But, let's face it, being in HR implies wearing a lot of different hats and juggling different priorities and different projects and all of that. In all that twirl of managing those priorities and keeping in check, how do you prioritize alignment and engagement across your 7 companies?
Is really hard. So sometimes the squeakiest wheel gets the most attention. So I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, but if I have like, we acquired a new company, their scores were not that great. They got a lot more of my attention for a few months. So some of it is you just have to pay attention where it is most critical, right? So that's one option. The other thing is looking for initiatives that have the biggest impact. So I really believe it is a big impact to do like the channel on your chat where people can start giving shout outs. And of course I have to give shout outs to teach people how to do that. And then good vibes, so easy because I don't have to do anything. But so I would say sometimes the squeaky wheel just gets the most attention. The second thing is using tools that don't take a lot of our work. So we prioritize tools that we don't have to do a whole lot for. And like good vibes, like the channel where people give shout outs, those kind of things.
Making
We
use of
automate
technology.
whatever we can. We use technology to automate things. And then the other thing is that we have a lot of grace with ourselves, that we can't do everything at once. So we have initiatives every quarter. So we literally just cannot it's baby steps, right? We really focus on, let's take another baby step this quarter. Let's do something better
in small pieces.
Yes. And then those things just add, so first for alignment, first we had a quarterly town hall,
Right.
Then we started recording the town halls. Then we started having smaller teams. And I think we just have to be to not beat ourselves up because we're not doing everything at once. I think that you can get office vibe and feel overwhelmed if you don't tell yourself like, oh, you can't do everything at once. You can't change everything overnight. You can't even respond to every comment. I mean, I know that responses are really important on office vibe, but you have to have some grace that you're not going to do everything perfectly, but you just take baby steps and you try to do things and then try to have some variety. Like my biggest advice when you're looking at recognition and alignment is to really remember that people learn differently and people value different things. Like I read this book, which I can't even believe it sounds so cheesy. I would bring it up, but the 5 love languages at work. Have you heard of that? Like, do you know about this 5 love languages?
I don't. Please tell me.
In America, it's this like book for like 30 years from Oprah and all of that. But it's that every relationship you're in, every person has a love language. And like one love language may be quality time. So the way your husband might show you he loves you is he spends a lot of time with you, or it could be presence. It could be something material. There's all these different things. And so if you believe that your love language is quality time and you're, trying to spend more time with your team, well, their love language might be money. They might want a bonus. Every person values something different. So you have to mix up what you're doing for recognition to hit as many different people as you can.
You have to invest the time to know your people. You have to have those conversations to say, what type are you? What love language do you speak? What's important to you?
Yes.
And realizing that you have that diversity of inside your organization and that your strategies need to match that while still staying true to who you are and what you value as a company, of course. I really wonder, like, get us the inside view of how you plan for those people initiatives. Like when the time comes to plan out what your people priorities and strategies and programs will be, let's say for the next quarter or year, how do you do that?
Sure. So we start by looking at really a deep dive into office vibe, and we look at 2 things. What areas are sort of lowest and where we could have the biggest impact. Right. So we do that as a whole. And then sometimes we drill into groups too. So sometimes we do things for groups that have specifically low scores, but let's just pretend holistically. We knew, for example, wellness was an issue. So we said this quarter, we're going to have it, we're going to have our initiatives be about wellness, and we are going to think of what can we get the most bang for our buck, and what things can we do with not a lot of effort that can make a difference, right? So we know we have a small team. We can't always do huge initiatives. So we started, and this is something, but like we started doing like a fitness class on one Friday a month where people go, because then if they go to the fitness class, they can get a discounted membership. But like it not that major, but whatever.
All things. Yeah.
Just little things. But then we also decided we need to increase the size of our team. We need more people. So we looked at, okay, stress is a big issue as part of wellness. We need to look at the size of our teams. We need to hire some more people. So that became, an initiative for that quarter. But I think in general, we just look at where we can have the biggest bang for our buck and what we can do that's manageable. Man, I spent so much time getting overwhelmed by having these huge initiatives. And now I'm saying, I just need to take bite-sized pieces.
Iterative approach. Yeah.
And then go that way. And then we have had to do some things for special teams, right? So if we have a team in a location that is particularly stressed, our initiative for that quarter may be really focused around that team, right? Like, for example, we get some negative feedback about the fact that a couple of our teams have to be on call 1 week every 2 months, right? So we've looked at, we increased the amount we pay for on call. We now have 2 people on call, not 1, so they don't have as many calls. We are looking at having a 24-hour team so that they don't be on call. And we have 20, so there's some things that we do each quarter that are just for one team, and then some things that are holistic. I already know that for this quarter, we're going to focus on manager training because I have all this knowledge about office vibe that I haven't done a good enough job of sharing with my managers. So I feel like that's not some huge initiative, but it will make a big difference in like the multiplier effect of more people knowing how to use office vibe to make changes to the teams.
Absolutely. And so we talked about this last Friday. It's such a big part of the people role function to really enable those managers to take action and really, play their part. And you can only do that when you invest the time to explain to them why it's important, but also why their impact matters and how they can have an impact, leveraging their skills as a manager, because managers has different styles and have different skills and approaches, different languages. I love that you taught me that, the love language thing. I'm going to use it. But
Yes.
also how they can leverage the tools that they have at their disposal to really drive that impact
Yes.
forward. You talked a lot about your people. I mean, the importance of finding the right people within your organization, and it's super important. I know you focus a lot on your tech recruitment. We've talked about this a couple of times, and I do want to dive in a little bit into that subject. I know that you guys have a culture of high performance. And you told me the story that comes from Notre Dame, right? And football. And remind me,
it does. So Tracy, our CEO, played football at Notre Dame, and you're not in the US, but Notre Dame football is a huge deal, like very top team, has won a lot of national championships, all of that. And he played under Coach Lou Holtz, who's a legendary, football coach, and everything was about high performance. And Coach Holtz cared about his players, but you had to do well, right? It was just this expectation. And Tracy is very sports minded about, look, we want to win. We want to win, and we have to have high performers. It's a huge part of our culture.
Tell me remind me again, how do you identify those high performers? How do you,
Do you mean when I'm interviewing or once they're here?
Both. Can I ask?
Yeah. That's hard. I would say during the interview process, part of it, we don't care about resumes. We don't care about where you went to school. We don't require degrees, even for software engineers. Nice. We want to know what you can do. We are all about what you can do and who you are as a person. And so, some of our jobs have assessments that they take as part of the process, like data engineers have assessments to see what they can do. But we have a very interactive interview process to get, how does someone think about problems? We're always looking for how do they approach challenges? What is their, performance mindset, those kind of things. And then at our company, how we identify them, that is probably one of our challenge. I think we always thought we inherently knew, like it was obvious. And I don't know that it is. Like we have performance management every year, but to be honest, I'm not sure that's the best predictor all the time. So I would say that's kind of a challenge. Some people are just obvious. We know who they are, right? But I think we've got to get better at identifying high performers that may be under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I love that you're going there. I think it's a question that I'm asking myself, definitely. And a lot of leaders are asking themselves too. We've seen this for decades. Performance management is transforming. We've had a lot of talks about that before. I think it's extremely challenging, but because to your point, instinct and observation will tell you, you'll know. But how do you find a way to consistently identify those people, but also like there's multiple goals you'd want to reach there. You want to keep that level of performance as long as it's sustainable. Of course, you want to reward it, you want to recognize it, and you want to fuel it. You want to identify what is making this person a high performer and how you can both recognize it, but fuel it. It's I guess and I'm thinking out loud.
We have not done enough in that area, I will tell you, because I think that's a really good question.
It's really hard, right? And you don't want it to feel too formal or too distant, like an annual review. We talked about making those conversations more frequent. But it's like the unsolved mystery that I think a lot of people, researchers around the world, different companies are testing different approaches. I really wonder, is there a right way? Is there one way?
Man, I wish I knew. Like, we have even struggled with how do we assess the performance of, let's say, a data engineer. We are running into this issue where our data engineers do client implementations, right? They bring all their data into our systems. It's hard to even know how long should that take, to be honest, because some implementations take forever. So how do you have an objective measure for work that is so complex?
Right.
And if you don't have an objective measure, how do you know your high performers, right? It's easy in sales. High performers bring in lots of contracts, right? Even recruiters, I bring in lots of quality hires, let's say. But in technical roles where it is really this complex work, how do you know? It is a really hard thing.
And does it really matter? Are you really looking at the right metrics to inform whether that person or that job is being done. Like, do you have benchmarks? So to your point, if a project is so complex,
Yes.
how can we actually say it should have taken 2 weeks and it took you 4? But hold on, does that matter? What really does? What would you say to that?
This is just really something we are struggling with right now. And we are trying to figure it out. It's because when let's say an implementation is taking a long time, it's hard to know why. And because we don't know why, it makes it hard to improve the process or to reward the performers that are doing so great at it. I mean, this is like a huge topic here the past few months. It is, I have done so many Google searches of what are the metrics for a data engineer, for example, right? Or software engineer, or
Wow.
like our product manager might say it's user stories, right?
Yeah.
It's whatever, but every user story is a little more different, like complex, not complex.
Really compare. Yeah.
Yeah, we have not cracked it, and it is a big issue. So what we did this year, we're doing performance reviews right now. We tried a new approach where we said that every job at our company has 3 components. One is quality of work, and quality is going to be different for every kind of position. It might be bugs or number of user story, whatever. Quality of work, timeliness of work, right? Are you getting things done in a timely manner? And then experience of your stakeholders. So if you think about, if you're a data engineer, how do our clients feel about how you're navigating the project? And then timeliness is, are your projects getting done in a great amount of time? Quality is the data flowing accurately. So we don't have an answer, but we tried this year to say, let's try evaluating on these 3 components. But again, we do not have, it's really hard to have objective measures to determine that. It is something we struggle with.
Yeah. And you're definitely not alone. We've been interested in this subject for quite some time here at Office Vibe, and it's definitely a pickle. And what I think is great, and what you're saying, is that you're experimenting. You're not accepting status quo because it's not giving you exactly what you hope to achieve as an outcome, but you're trying different things. And I would maybe close that subject with, I feel my 6th sense tells me that some of the answer, if there is a perfect answer, which I don't think there is, because it varies for so many different factors, probably lies within our people. I think we should be having these conversations with our people and asking them what they think and what could be those. Basically, the challenge that is often on HR or the business's shoulders could be explored in a very collective manner. You know how sometimes it's like we've seen these things in like manufacturers like making chips, and I don't know, and they're like, we should do that with that machine, blah 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 blah. And then when you actually walk the floor and you go look at the people and you talk to the people and you watch them work and you talk to them, answers magically appear. I'm not saying that this necessarily applies, but I think we should give all people a voice. How about we end our conversation with like your favorite thing, I think, in the world, and my favorite thing too. I want to end with a good vibe. I want to again reiterate on behalf of our team here at Office Vibe how much we're thankful for your collaboration in building this feature. Thank you so much for your partnership. You know how much we want to build products with our clients, and you're a living example of how we do that. I'd love for you to share maybe advice you would have for someone who's trying and ready to actually nurture a culture of recognition within their team and start using the tool. What advice would you give them?
The executive leadership team or like HR should be sending a lot of those, especially in the beginning, because to get people to adopt it, it's really great if they've gotten one, right? And they know how it feels. And so whenever you're trying to get other people to use the tool, the more you can use it, the better. So I did a ton of those. I still do some. I have my managers do them. I would say that's important. I also think I had a lot of fun creating custom cards. So you may not want to do that right at first, but you can create custom cards. So I created some that are specific to like analytics. For example, I made like, oh, you're a data ninja. Someone's a data ninja, because we use that word around here. We're all about data. So I think that's good. But I think doing a lot of your own cards, making sure people know about the tool, having your managers send cards, it just, the more people start using it, the more people know about it. And then it will just sort of take off a little more. And I think using that report. So I didn't realize that a feature I had asked for, which was that report that I, was there. I was so excited. But now I'm able to write little notes to my managers who are doing a great job to say, oh my gosh, I saw how many cards your team is sending. That's really great. And then reminding some of managers who have not used it, hey, you haven't used this in a while. You probably forgot. I know you're so busy, but if you could try to send one or two, I would love to test out and make sure that, you know how to use it and things are going well. And so using the report is important too.
I agree. I love how that you're recognizing your managers for recognizing their people, like that. What a wonderful way to tie it all together in a perfect bow.
It's education. You have to acknowledge the behavior you want to continue, right? It's psychology, right? So the more you tell people they're doing something well, the more they're going to do it, right? And so I just really believe I have to be giving positive reinforcement, right? So positive reinforcement for doing the right thing. And people do it more and more and more.
Exactly. And then it becomes impossible for that to not have a positive impact on your business. I mean,
exactly.
Ties it all together.
Some people write in our feedback how much they love it. Like, the feedback portion where people write things. And so it'll say something like, well, what does your company do for recognition? And people say, oh, we like use good vibes or what, and so I know people are noticing it. I know they enjoy getting good vibes. We have one company, and I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this, but we have one company that every month they look at all the good vibes and they pull like a Starbucks gift card for one of the people that sent a good vibe. I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
And so they made a contest out of sending it just to kind of, again, get people using it, which is good. And then the other thing they do, they have a social media marketing manager who's amazing. She's the best we have. And at the end of the month, she pulls some good vibes. She gets permission from the person to share them. I've tagged you on LinkedIn, and she shares them on LinkedIn. Like, hey, here's a few good vibes that our people gave to each other. So that's another strategy is making them more public or using them as a way to kind of get some attention for the fact that people are saying nice things about each other.
Yeah. And the message that gets out there is this is a great place to work.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a great experience for people, but it's a great company to work with. I love it. Oh my God. Awesome. It's like, this has been so valuable. Thank you for sharing all of your advice and your stories and just opening the door to your heart and to your business and to what matters to you. I feel it's really beautiful. And I'll end with our tradition. I want to do a final vibe check. How are you doing really after this chat?
No, I'm doing great. But my mind is racing with all the things I want to do next, right? Talking to you reminds me of like, oh man, I really should I haven't sent out that manager training thing yet. Do you know what I mean? When you brainstorm with someone about things you love about a tool, my mind immediately goes to, oh, I should try XYZ. So I'm great. I had a fabulous conversation. But now my mind is just racing with all the things I should do as a result of the conversation.
You know what? I think that's a very positive outcome of a very fruitful conversation. Then I'm happy that you're leaving with that. Same. I'm tempted to write in my book, like all of the ideas that I had. So yeah, I hope you can surf on that momentum and that energy drives you to awesome things.
And please know, we appreciate you too. I mean, I cannot tell you how much it has meant that when I have a question, the people on your, like, I can go to support, I can give you an idea, give you a suggestion. It has been very, very impactful for us as well.
I'm glad it's mutual.
It is very mutual.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mary Jo, for being with us and for accepting to embark on that conversation journey with us. It's been wonderful to have you.
You are welcome. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Sure will.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.